The first postcard came to the blue hollow mailbox, the one nailed sideways to that black oak up past Turner's Gulch. Folks say the road ended there 50 years ago, but the mailbox stayed, rusted doors sagging open like a broken jaw. That morning, I'd gone up there to clear brush after a storm and found it waiting inside. A postcard. New, crisp, white edges so clean it looked like it had just come off a press. No stamp, no postmark, just 4 words written in uneven black ink across the image of a hollow house. Don't come back. I remember standing there too long, reading it over and over until the sound hit me. Not a voice, not wind, a ticking, slow and rhythmic, like a grandfather clock, but buried underground. Each tick came slower than the last. I shoved the postcard in my jacket, tried to laugh it off, but when I slammed the mailbox door closed, it bounced open again. I held it shut, tight. I could feel it fighting me. Something beneath the wood, something deep in that tree where the mailbox was nailed, pushing back. My heart hammered as I leaned in, thinking I'd hear the tick clearer. But what I heard wasn't a tick anymore. It was breathing, wet, heavy, right inside the tree. That was when the postcard crumpled itself in my pocket. I swear to God it did. I didn't squeeze it. It folded like something inside the paper pulled the edges in, a shudder through the fibers. I dropped it and ran. I ran until I hit asphalt. Didn't even care that I left the brush truck behind. It took me 2 days to go back. When I did, the mailbox door was gone, torn off. And where the postcard had fallen, the earth was blackened, burned in a perfect rectangle. I don't talk much about Blue Hollow anymore. But sometimes, when I drive near Turner's Gulch, I swear I hear that ticking again. Slower now, deeper, like the tree itself is counting down. The second postcard showed up at the red gate box, the one everyone thought was torn down after the Miller family vanished. But I know better. The mailbox is still there, rust welded shut, hidden behind brush that no one dares clear. I wasn't supposed to be near it. I was driving an old postal route, trying to clear my head, when my truck's radio went dead. Completely silent. No static, no hum. Just an absence of sound, so deep my ears rang trying to fill the void. That's when I saw the flag on the red gate box. Up, freshly painted red. I knew that flag had rusted off decades ago. Yet there it stood, bright as blood, pointing at the sky like a warning. Against every instinct, I stopped the truck. I shouldn't have. I walked up to the mailbox, my footsteps sounding wrong on the gravel like walking inside a warehouse, echoes where there should be none. The box itself radiated cold, not surface cold, but deep cold, the kind you feel in your gums and behind your eyes. I forced the latch open with shaking fingers, and that's when the smell hit me. Old paper, but burned, like charred newspaper and wet ashes. Inside sat a second postcard. Same style, same black scrawl. Different image this time, a spiral staircase descending into darkness. And across the center, in those crooked letters, "Don't come back." I wanted to drop it, but my hand wouldn't open. My fingers locked around the edges as if the paper itself held me. That's when I realized the air wasn't cold anymore. It was perfectly still. No air at all, like the world itself had stopped breathing around me. My ears rang louder, filling with pressure, until I understood it wasn't silence at all. It was a hum, deep, slow, mechanical, like gears grinding beneath the earth. And then the hum spoke. Not words, but tone, a pattern I felt inside my chest. 3 pulses, pause, 3 more. It wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. I slammed the box shut, nearly shearing the skin from my fingertips as the latch snapped closed. The hum vanished. The pressure lifted. And suddenly, the flag was gone. No paint, no metal, nothing. Just a rusted post where it had stood seconds before. I threw the postcard into the woods. But when I checked my jacket hours later, it was there in the pocket I never opened. Perfectly flat. Perfectly clean. And now, the image was changing. Slowly, the spiral staircase deepening, turning inward, like whatever waited at the bottom was moving closer. The third postcard didn't wait for me to find it. It arrived in my own mailbox. That was the moment I knew I wasn't dealing with local superstition anymore. It was late, just past 2 a.m., and I'd woken to the sound of footsteps on gravel. I live alone, miles from any neighbor, and when I looked out the front window, nothing was there. Except the mailbox. Open. Flag raised. I didn't think. I just stepped outside, barefoot on cold earth, breathing air too still for the hour. Every sound felt wrong, too sharp, every tree too close. I stood there longer than I should have, unable to move forward or back, until I realized I wasn't hearing footsteps anymore. I was hearing breathing. From the open mailbox, long, shallow, as if the box itself was exhaling. I forced myself forward, reached inside. I didn't want to. I had no choice. The postcard sat waiting, colder than the metal around it. This one was different. No image. Just pure white, like a funeral shroud. The message wasn't handwritten. It was pressed, embossed, clean as a machine. Don't come back. The weight of those words broke something inside me. I dropped the card, but when it hit the dirt, the earth beneath it blackened, like frost or ash spreading from where it landed. I picked it up again without thinking, burning my fingertips on something that felt both freezing and scalding all at once. That's when I saw the back. No address, no stamp, just a faint outline of a spiral burned into the paper itself, growing darker with every second I held it. The breathing from the box slowed, then stopped, and in that silence I heard the ticking start again, like the first mailbox, but closer. This time I knew where it was coming from. My house, from inside. I didn't turn around. I ran. I left the postcard where it fell, but I knew even then it would find me again. Because the moment I crossed the tree line, the air shifted. The hum returned. Deeper, hungrier. The countdown wasn't warning me anymore. It was following. And whatever waited at the bottom of that spiral staircase wanted me to know. I wasn't being sent a message. I was being invited. The fourth postcard came from a place I didn't even know had a mailbox. Dead Man's Switch, they called it. A mining road long buried after the collapse in '61. Folks around here say no mail ever went that far, that even back then no carrier would dare cross the ridgeline past Blackroot Quarry. But someone had nailed a box there. Bent, twisted, black with rust, like it had burned from the inside out. I found it by accident, trying to avoid the back roads where I thought the postcards couldn't reach me. My truck stalled near the quarry. Lights dead, engine cold. And when I stepped out, that humming silence wrapped around me again, thicker than fog, heavier than smoke. The forest itself leaned in. That's when I saw the box, half buried in gravel. Its door hung open, but the flag, somehow, stood upright, clean, red as fresh blood. Against every survival instinct, I approached. The cold from that box wasn't like winter. It was deeper, hollow. My skin burned in reverse just standing near it. I reached for the door, and that's when I heard it from below my feet. Knocking, not wood, Not stone, but metal, echoing upwards from somewhere deep beneath the quarry floor. It tapped in rhythm. 7 knocks, a pause, then 7 more. I forced the box open, and there it waited. The 4th postcard, crisper than any before. No image this time, just black ink carved into the surface like it had been burned there, branding the message straight through the fibers. Don't come back. But underneath the words, barely visible unless the light hit right, was the outline of a door, a simple rectangle, closed, locked, but with a spiral handle in the center, turning ever so slightly. I didn't breathe. Couldn't. Something behind me moved. Slow, deliberate. I felt its weight before I heard it. The dragging sound of something massive pulling itself up the quarry slope. I never looked back. I took the postcard without thinking, shoved it in my pocket, and ran. The knocking followed me for miles, hollow taps punching up through the earth itself until they faded somewhere past midnight. When I got home, the postcard was gone from my pocket. But my front door was open. And inside, sitting alone on my kitchen table, was a 5th postcard. Blank. Waiting. The 5th postcard didn't bring sound. It brought silence. Worse than the hum, worse than the ticking, worse than the breathing. True silence. The kind that wraps around your skull and squeezes until your heartbeat feels like an intruder. I found it after 2 sleepless nights, locked in my house with every door bolted, every window sealed. But it didn't matter. That morning, the front door stood wide open again, though I knew I'd locked it. My kitchen smelled like old iron and wet paper, and sitting dead center on the floor was the postcard, the 5th. It was larger than the others, heavier. Its surface wasn't white but gray, dusty, like stone ground smooth by years of touch. There was no message this time, not written. But the lines pressed into the card formed a shape I recognized immediately. The spiral staircase. Deeper now. No longer descending in soft curves, but twisting, sharp, jagged, tighter. At its center, a small black door. Open, and from the hole in that drawn door, the silence poured. It wasn't absence of sound anymore. It was consumption. It devoured every creak of floorboards, every rustle of fabric, every breath I struggled to take. I felt like I was standing in a vacuum that pulled thought itself from my skull. Then, the sensation changed. Not pulling inward, but pushing out. Something behind that spiral door wasn't content to wait anymore. The silence pressed against my skin, drumming against my ribs, searching for a way in. And then I understood. The message wasn't, "Don't come back" anymore. Not for me. It was a reminder. I was already there. I stumbled back, dropping the card, but it clung to my palm, not stuck by glue or sweat. The fibers of the card pulsed, like skin, like something alive. I ran to the sink, blasted water, tried to burn it from me. But the card wouldn't burn, wouldn't tear, wouldn't drown. It simply stayed. Heavy as stone, cold as iron. And when I finally collapsed on the floor hours later, it rested neatly beside my hand, waiting, silent. Later that night, the knocking began again. Not from the quarry, not from the woods, from under my house. Slow, methodical. 7 knocks, a pause, then 7 more. And the silence between each knock wasn't empty. It was listening. The 6th postcard didn't arrive by hand. It arrived by dream. At least, that's what I told myself at first. I woke to find it resting on my chest, perfectly centered, heavy enough that I'd stopped breathing properly in my sleep. My bedroom was wrong that night. Too sharp, too clear, like I was seeing it through someone else's eyes. Every shadow sat exactly where it shouldn't. And the postcard itself wasn't paper anymore. It was metal. Thin. Cold. Edges so sharp they drew blood from my fingertips without pressure. The image burned into it wasn't a spiral staircase this time. It was a doorway. Just the door. Black. Seamless. Closed. And something behind it. Pressing. Bulging the surface outward as if straining against a membrane. There were no words. No, don't come back this time. Just the outline of something trying to step through. As I sat up, dizzy from the weight on my chest, I realized the door wasn't just drawn on the metal card. It was mirrored. My reflection looked back at me from its surface. But it wasn't me. The figure behind the door had my shape, my face, but its eyes were gone. Hollow. I dropped the card. Metal rang against the wooden floor, but the sound didn't echo right. It stretched, warped, looped back around until the hum returned, not from under the house now, but from inside the walls themselves. 7 pulses. Pause. 7 more. I scrambled for the door, but each step felt wrong, slower, heavier, like gravity itself had shifted inside the house. My hands shook as I reached the hallway. And that's when I saw them. The mailboxes. 7 of them, nailed directly into the walls where paintings used to hang. Each one identical to those along the Appalachian roads, rusted, bent, their flags raised in unison. Every door hung open, and from deep inside each box came a noise that shattered me. Not breathing, not humming, whistling. 7 notes. Played slow, deliberate, not to beckon, not anymore. It was a warning. One I was too late to understand. The door was open, and whatever had been sending the postcards wasn't out there anymore. It was here, and it was waiting for me to answer. The 7th postcard never arrived. Not physically. It didn't need to. Because by then, I understood I'd never left the spiral. That night, I ran. Left the house, the town, the mountains themselves. I drove until my gas tank bled dry, and I stumbled into a nameless highway rest stop somewhere south of the state line. I thought maybe asphalt and strangers would protect me. But as I sat in the fluorescent hum of that empty diner, coffee shaking in my hand, I felt the silence fold around me again, not total, just enough to hollow the world. Every conversation behind me sounded distant, like echoes from the wrong end of a tunnel. My heartbeat slowed without my consent. And that's when I saw it. The final mailbox. Not nailed to a tree, not buried in dirt, standing upright at the edge of the parking lot, alone in the floodlights. Its flag was up, and though every part of me screamed to run, I walked to it. I opened the door without resistance, and there inside, resting flat like an invitation, was the 7th postcard. No image, no metal, no paper, just darkness. Actual, impossible darkness, pressed flat into card shape, swallowing the inside of that box. And written on its surface, in letters I felt rather than saw, the final message waited for me. You were never meant to leave. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. My name was already etched into its surface. I could feel it. And in that moment, I understood the postcards hadn't been warnings. They weren't threats. They were memories. Markers. Signposts nailed to abandoned mailboxes across the Appalachians to remind something ancient where I had walked. Where I still belonged. The spiral hadn't been following me. It had been retracing its steps, reclaiming what it lost. Me. Behind me, I heard the door to the diner swing open. Slow. creaking. And the footsteps that followed weren't footsteps. They were the sound of mailboxes slamming shut one after another. 7 times. The whistling began. But now, it wasn't warning me away. It was calling me home. I still stand here now, beside the mailbox, too scared to turn around. I know what waits when I do. I know who sent the 7th postcard. And I know the spiral never ends. Because the last message isn't for me anymore. Because if you're reading this, the next mailbox isn't waiting in some forgotten valley or rusted post by a logging road. It's waiting at the end of your street. Maybe you've already seen it. Maybe you told yourself it was just decoration, some relic someone forgot to tear down. But look again. Notice the flag. Raised, isn't it? Red, clean, out of place. Like it's waiting for something. Like it's waiting for you. You'll tell yourself it's impossible that you're safe where you are. Cities, lights, crowds. But the spiral doesn't care about geography. It isn't made of stone or metal or dirt. It's made of memory. And now that you know, it remembers you. Soon, you'll hear it. Maybe not tonight. Maybe not tomorrow. But one night, when the wind outside falls silent and your own heartbeat feels too loud, you'll notice the absence of everything. And in that silence, from the corner of the room, or beneath your bed, or inside your walls, you'll hear it. The whistle, low, patient, 7 notes, pause, 7 more. You'll want to run. You'll think locking the door will help. It won't. The 7th postcard doesn't need to find you, because it never left. It's always been with you, in your jacket pocket, in your bedside drawer, in your reflection. And when you finally open it, when you read the words written in ink darker than any shadow, you'll understand what I understood too late. Don't come back wasn't a threat. It was an instruction. And now, like me, you've already disobeyed.